Keanu Reeves showed true humility. Even Hollywood couldn't believe it. The lights inside the theater were brighter than the stars outside. Cameras flashed, people whispered, and everyone waited for the star of the night. It was a huge Hollywood event, the kind where every face in the crowd carried confidence, style, and pride. But when Keanu Reeves entered the hall, something strange happened. The room went silent for a few seconds. It wasn't because of his fame. It wasn't because of his movies. It was because of his walk. He moved like a man who carried no weight of fame, no crown of pride, no wall between himself and others. He simply walked like one of us. In a place where most people wanted attention, Keanu avoided it. Instead of walking straight to the VIP seats, he slowed down near the staff who were arranging chairs and carrying trays. One worker looked nervous, struggling to balance the drinks in his hand. The crowd ignored him, but Keanu noticed. He walked up, steady and calm, placed a hand on the tray, and helped the man balance it. The worker froze, shocked. Before he could even say thank you, Keanu gave him a soft smile and whispered, "Don't worry, you're doing great." The cameras caught the moment, but Keanu didn't care. He kept walking as if nothing happened. People in Hollywood were not used to that. Stars usually shine for themselves. But Keanu's light spread to others. The audience felt something shift in the air. Whispers started. Some asked, "Did he really stop for a worker?" Others smiled quietly, feeling respect in their hearts. It was the first reminder of the night. Humility is louder than fame. When Keanu finally reached his seat, the host was ready to welcome him with a big introduction. But Keanu raised his hand gently, asking the host to wait. Everyone looked confused. Then Keanu turned to an old woman in the row behind him. Her ticket was mixed up and she looked lost, standing without a seat. He stood up, offered her his chair, and moved to the side to stand until another chair was brought. The crowd gasped. In Hollywood, where seats are power, he gave his away. The old woman sat down, holding tears in her eyes. Keanu leaned down and said softly, "You deserve comfort more than me." The cameras caught this too. The story was already bigger than the event itself. People couldn't believe it. Actors, producers, and directors looked at each other. The man they had seen fighting on screen, the man who carried action and strength in his films, was showing a different strength tonight. This strength wasn't about muscles or fame. It was about heart, but the night was just beginning. The event soon turned into an award ceremony, and Keanu's name was called for a lifetime honor. The audience clapped, the lights pointed at him, and everyone waited for his speech. He walked to the stage, but instead of looking proud, he looked almost shy. He took the award in his hands, paused, and looked at the crowd. Then he said words that no one expected. "This award doesn't belong to me alone," he began. "It belongs to every person who worked behind the scenes, the ones who never stand under these lights. I am just one face, but their effort is the foundation of everything you see on screen." The audience felt chills. Actors who usually thought only of themselves suddenly bowed their heads in thought. The workers backstage stopped what they were doing and listened. People watching at home felt tears rise in their eyes. It was not just a speech. It was a reminder that humility can touch hearts deeper than fame ever could. But just as everyone thought the moment was over, something unexpected happened. Keanu looked down at the award again. His hands trembled slightly. Then he stepped aside from the microphone and called someone from backstage. It was the same worker he had helped earlier with the tray. The man walked out slowly, confused and nervous. Keanu placed the award in his hands for a moment and said, "This is for you too." The hall went silent again. The worker cried. The audience clapped louder than ever before. Hollywood had seen success, money, and fame many times, but it had rarely seen humility this pure. As Keanu walked back to his seat, the host whispered to him, "You just changed the night." But Keanu only smiled and said, "No, I just did what anyone should do." His words were simple, but they shook every heart in that hall. Hollywood couldn't believe it, but it was real. And this was only the beginning of the story. The test of humility began. The night after the awards ceremony, headlines filled the internet. Newspapers, blogs, and television shows carried one story. It wasn't about who wore the most expensive suit or who won the biggest trophy. It was about the quiet man who gave his seat to an old woman and shared his honor with a worker. Millions of people across the world read the same words. Keanu Reeves showed what true humility means. Hollywood stars couldn't stop talking about it. Yet behind all the noise, Keanu himself stayed silent. He lived the same way as before, avoiding the spotlight whenever he could. But soon, humility itself was tested. A famous director, proud and known for arrogance, did not like the attention Keanu was getting. During a private gathering, he mocked Keanu, saying, "Hollywood is not a place for servants in suits. It is for kings, not saints." People in the room laughed nervously, but Keanu didn't. He simply smiled and said, "A true king serves before he rules." The director grew red with anger. He wanted to prove that Keanu's humility was only an act, something fake to win hearts. And so he planned a public test. Days later, an announcement came. Keanu was invited to a charity gala where wealthy stars would donate to help children in need. The director made sure the event was filled with challenges. The richest people would give millions, and cameras would catch every moment. He whispered to others, "Let's see how humble this man is when real pride is on the table." The night of the gala arrived. Limousines lined the street, red carpets stretched under the bright lights, and every guest dressed in diamonds and gold. When Keanu arrived, he wore a simple black suit, nothing shiny, nothing loud. Reporters rushed toward him asking, "Will you outshine the others tonight? Will you give more than them?" Keanu only smiled and said, "Giving is not about who gives the most. It is about who gives with heart." Inside the hall, the donations began. Famous actors raised their hands and announced numbers that made the crowd cheer. 2 million, 5 million, 10 million. Each number was louder than the last, each face more proud. The director kept watching Keanu, waiting for him to fall under the pressure. Finally, the host called Keanu's name. The crowd leaned forward. Everyone expected a number that could shake the hall. But Keanu stood slowly, held the microphone, and said, "I will give something that money cannot buy." The hall went silent. Whispers began. Some smiled, others frowned. The director smirked, thinking Keanu had lost. But then Keanu explained. He said, "Every child deserves love, time, and hope. I will not only donate money, but also my days. For the next year, I will visit hospitals and schools quietly, without cameras, to be with the children who feel forgotten. I will read with them, laugh with them, and remind them that they matter." The hall froze. The number on paper was missing, but the value was endless. Some stars looked ashamed, realizing they had given money only for the cameras. Others felt inspired, their pride turning into reflection. But the director still refused to bow. He stood and mocked loudly. "So you give words instead of gold. Children cannot eat words." The room grew tense. This was the conflict everyone feared. Keanu turned to him calmly and said, "Money can fill a plate, but kindness can fill a soul. Both are needed, but one without the other is empty." The crowd clapped. The director fell silent, his pride wounded. By the end of the night, Keanu still donated quietly, slipping a large sum without his name on it. Only the organizers knew. He didn't want headlines. He only wanted children to smile. As the gala ended, the host whispered to the crowd, "Hollywood saw generosity tonight, but it also saw humility stronger than gold." People nodded. They understood now. True giving was not measured by numbers. It was measured by heart. But deep in the shadows, the director was not done. He swore to expose Keanu, to break his humility with traps and insults. He told himself, "No man is truly that humble. I will prove it." What he didn't know was that every trap he planned would only reveal a bigger truth. Traps of pride, the director could not sleep. Every headline praised Keanu. Every talk show spoke about his humility. The world admired him, while the director's own pride felt crushed. He whispered to himself, No man can stay humble forever. I will find the crack. Soon he designed a trap. He arranged a big interview, one that would be broadcast across the world. He knew the host well, and he told him secretly, "Push Keanu until he shows anger. Corner him until he breaks. Then the world will see who he really is." The day of the interview arrived. The studio was bright, the cameras lined up, and millions waited to watch. The host welcomed Keanu with a smile, but hidden in his eyes was the plan. At first, the questions were soft. They spoke about movies, about his journey, about the recent award night. Keanu answered with gentle words, always giving credit to others, never to himself. But then the host changed. His voice grew sharp. "People say you are humble, but isn't it just a mask? Aren't you using humility to win attention?" The room went silent. Everyone leaned forward. The director, watching from backstage, smiled darkly. This was the strike. Keanu paused. His eyes lowered for a moment. Then he looked back and said softly, "Attention fades. Kindness does not. If humility was a mask, it would have fallen long ago." The host pushed harder. "But what about your past? Didn't you suffer failures? Didn't people laugh at you? Don't you feel anger at them now that you stand above them?" Keanu's face carried no pride. Instead, his voice grew even softer. "Yes, I faced loss. I faced pain. But anger is a chain. If you carry it, you remain trapped. I forgave, not because they deserved it, but because peace deserves to live inside us." The audience clapped quietly. The director frowned. The mask he wanted to break had only grown stronger, yet the host was not finished. He asked about personal tragedies, about the hardest chapters of Keanu's life. The director wanted to see him collapse in front of millions, but Keanu did not run from the questions. Instead, he opened his heart. "Life has taken people I loved," Keanu said, his voice heavy with memory. "But grief taught me to value every smile around me. Every moment is fragile. We cannot hold it forever, but we can honor it with kindness." Many in the audience wiped their eyes. The silence in the studio was deep, not of judgment, but of respect. The host finally lowered his head, unable to attack any more. "People truly believe you are different," he admitted. Keanu gave him a small smile and said, "I'm not different. I am just human. But I try to remember what matters." The interview ended, but the story spread like fire. Clips of his words filled the internet. People repeated his lines. Children shared them in schools. Families spoke about them at dinner tables. His humility had not broken. It had grown stronger. The director, watching all this, felt anger rise like fire. His trap had failed, but he refused to stop. He muttered, "If he will not break with words, I will break him with actions. I will create a storm no humility can survive." He started planning another test, one harsher than before. But what he didn't know was this: storms reveal the strongest roots, and Keanu's roots of humility ran deeper than anyone could imagine. The storm begins. The director was done with quiet tricks. He wanted the world to see Keanu stumble, even if it meant creating the fall himself. So he planned something bold, something that would drag Keanu into a storm of shame. He arranged a grand Hollywood celebration, a night filled with reporters, flashing cameras, and live broadcasts across the world. But hidden beneath the glitter, the event carried a trap. In secret, the director spread rumors before the event. He told journalists, "Keanu rejects luxury, but tonight we will see the truth. He has hidden pride, just like everyone else." Reporters sharpened their questions, ready to strike. The stage was set not to honor him, but to break him. When the night arrived, the hall glowed with chandeliers and golden carpets. The richest stars walked proudly, each dressed in diamonds and silk. When Keanu entered, he wore a simple black suit again, the same one he had worn many times. Whispers ran through the crowd. Some mocked, saying, "He repeats the same clothes, maybe to look humble." Others admired quietly, "He is the same everywhere." As Keanu walked inside, the reporters rushed to him. They asked with sharp voices, "Why do you refuse to dress like a star?" Do you think you are better than Hollywood? Cameras pointed, waiting for him to defend himself. The director watched from the shadows, his smile growing, but Keanu answered with calm. Clothes do not make respect, he said. How we treat people makes respect. His words turned the sharpness into silence, but the director had more prepared. The host of the night announced a surprise. One by one, stars were asked to show their personal belongings, to prove their wealth and power. Golden watches, shining necklaces, rare cars, and designer suits filled the stage. Then, the host called Keanu. He walked up slowly, holding nothing in his hands. Whispers filled the room again. The host asked with a smile that carried hidden cruelty, "And what will you show us tonight, Keanu? Where is your treasure?" Keanu looked at the crowd, then said, "My treasure is not in my pocket. It is in my memory." The hall grew still. He continued, "When I ride the subway and I stand to give my seat to someone older, that is treasure. When I help a stranger smile, that is treasure. You cannot hold it in your hands, but you can carry it in your heart forever." Some laughed, mocking. Others sat frozen, unable to deny the truth in his words. The director clenched his fists, his plan slipping again. But then came the hardest part. The host, following the director's whisper, showed a video on the giant screen. It was old footage of Keanu in a moment of anger. Years ago, during a painful time in his life, the director shouted from the shadows, "See, even the humble man has pride." He hides his true face. The hall turned cold. The cameras zoomed on Keanu. This was the storm. Many wondered if he would deny, defend, or walk away. But Keanu stood still. He looked at the screen, then back at the audience. His voice was steady. "Yes, that was me. I was broken. I was angry. I am not perfect, and I never claimed to be. But every mistake became a teacher. Humility is not about never falling. It is about rising with softer steps." The hall fell silent again. People lowered their heads, ashamed for judging. The old video, meant to destroy him, became proof of his honesty. His humility was not a mask. It was a choice he had built through pain. The applause that followed was not loud at first. It was slow, rising, then filling the hall like thunder. Some stars stood, clapping with tears in their eyes. Others whispered, "This is real. This is who he is." The director's face burned with defeat. He had created the storm, but it only made Keanu shine brighter. Still, he muttered, "I will not stop. If storms cannot break him, I will create a fire." The fire of doubt, the director's anger turned into desperation. Storms had failed. Tricks had failed. Every test made Keanu look stronger, not weaker. So the director planned something more dangerous. He decided to attack not only Keanu's image but his heart. He reached out to journalists, spreading lies. Articles began to appear, headlines flashing across the internet. They said, "Keanu refuses to help young actors. Keanu hides his wealth while preaching humility. And Keanu's kindness is only for cameras." Each story carried poison. The world began to split. Some defended him with passion, others started to doubt. When Keanu walked the streets, strangers whispered. Some smiled, some frowned. One child even asked him, "Is it true you don't care about people?" His heart ached at those words. He knelt down, looked into the child's eyes, and said, "Never believe that kindness is a show. It lives in every act, big or small, and I will keep proving it." The child smiled, but the doubt around him grew heavier. The director was pleased. He told himself, "This is the fire. No man can walk through it without burns." He expected Keanu to grow angry, to defend himself loudly, to fight back with pride. But once again, Keanu chose a different path. Instead of holding a press conference, he visited places no reporter cared about. He went to shelters, to hospitals, to schools. He spent nights sitting with children, listening to their dreams. He cooked meals with workers who cleaned the streets. He rode buses, spoke with strangers, and carried groceries for old women who could not lift them. People who met him told stories of real kindness. They had no cameras, only memories. Slowly, the fire of doubt began to lose strength. But then came the hardest blow. One evening, the director arranged a public debate, inviting Keanu to speak about humility. But secretly, he filled the audience with people trained to shout, to accuse, to embarrass him. When Keanu walked onto the stage, the first man shouted, "You are fake!" Another yelled, "You act humble only to look better than us." Others clapped for the noise, and soon the hall shook with insults. Cameras captured every second. Keanu stood in the middle of the storm of voices. The host tried to calm the crowd, but the shouting grew. The director, sitting in the back, smiled with victory. But then Keanu raised his hand gently. The noise slowly faded. His voice, soft but clear, filled the hall. "If you believe I am fake, I do not blame you. We live in a world where pride is loud and humility is rare. It is natural to doubt. But kindness is not about who believes it. It is about who receives it. Even if you think I am false, someone else might feel hope from one small act. And that hope is real." The hall grew quiet. Some who had shouted lowered their eyes. One woman in the crowd began to cry. Keanu continued, "I do not stand here to prove myself. I stand here to remind all of us that humility is not weakness. It is strength. And even if the world throws fire, it cannot burn a heart that chooses kindness." The applause rose slowly, then stronger until the hall echoed with claps. The director sat frozen, defeated again. His fire had turned into light, and that light only made Keanu shine brighter. But deep inside, the director's pride twisted darker. He whispered, "If fire cannot break him, then I will use betrayal. I will make his own people turn against him." The betrayal, the director's pride was now poisoned with obsession. Storms could not break Keanu. Fire could not silence him. So he turned to something colder, something crueler. He decided to use betrayal. He whispered to himself, "If the world loves him, I will make the world see him abandoned by his own." He found people who once worked with Keanu, men and women who had small roles in his films, assistants who had passed through his life. The director tempted them with money and fame. He told them, "Say that Keanu ignored you. Say that he treated you unfairly. The world will believe you." Some refused, but a few agreed, blinded by greed. Soon the headlines returned, sharper than before. Former colleagues accused Keanu of false humility. He abandoned those who supported him. The truth behind the mask. The internet exploded. Fans argued, critics attacked, and the noise became louder than ever. When Keanu saw the articles, his face carried no anger, but deep inside his heart felt heavy. Betrayal is different from insult. Insult comes from strangers, but betrayal comes from familiar hands. For a moment, even he wondered if the storm would finally break him. The director celebrated. "This is it," he said. "No man survives betrayal." A week later, Keanu walked into a press conference. Cameras filled the room. The crowd waited, hungry for a defense. The director had planted even more voices, ready to shout him down. But when Keanu walked to the stage, he did not carry anger. He carried silence. He stood there for a long moment before speaking. "I have been accused by people I once worked with. I will not attack them. I will not call them liars. Because maybe I failed them in ways I did not see. Maybe I was not there enough. If I hurt anyone, even without meaning to, I am sorry." The hall froze. Reporters blinked in shock. No one expected him to admit anything. No one expected him to show such honesty. He continued, "Humility is not about proving innocence. It is about accepting that we are all human, that we all make mistakes. I do not claim to be perfect. I only claim to keep trying to be kind." The silence in the room grew deep, almost painful. Then something happened that no one expected. One of the very people who had betrayed him stood up. Tears rolled down her face as she said, "I lied. I said what I was paid to say. But when he spoke just now, I remembered the truth. He was the only star who ever treated me with respect. He never raised his voice. He never ignored me. He helped me when no one else did." The hall erupted. Reporters gasped. Cameras clicked wildly. One by one, others who had betrayed him broke down, confessing that their words had been bought. The director, watching from the shadows, turned pale. His final weapon had shattered. Keanu looked at them, not with anger, but with softness. He said, "Thank you for being honest. We all fall, but truth can rise again." His words did not sting them. They healed them. The crowd clapped louder than ever before, some standing, some crying. It was no longer about movies, no longer about fame. It was about humanity. But in the shadows, the director whispered one last time, "Betrayal failed. Fire failed. Storms failed. There is only one thing left. I will strike at his very soul." The final wound, the director had lost every battle. Storms could not crush Keanu. Fire could not burn him. Betrayal only made him shine brighter. But the director's pride refused to die. He whispered to himself, "If I cannot break his name, I will break his heart. I will strike at the wound he carries in silence." He knew about Keanu's past. The losses he had endured, the people he had loved and lost. The pain he carried quietly, never flaunted, never shouted. The director believed that if the world was reminded of that pain, Keanu would collapse in front of them. So he arranged one final event, a tribute ceremony for Hollywood legends. He made sure Keanu would be honored there, and he arranged for a cruel surprise. Halfway through the night, as Keanu walked to the stage, the screen behind him suddenly lit up. Photos from his past appeared. The faces of those he had lost, moments of grief and heartbreak. The crowd gasped. Some felt compassion. Others waited to see if this would finally shatter him. The director whispered in the shadows, "Now the mask will fall. No man can stand when his deepest wounds are torn open." Keanu turned and looked at the screen. His eyes softened, and for a moment the hall held its breath. He could have broken down. He could have walked away. Instead, he stepped closer to the microphone. His voice was steady but filled with emotion. "Yes, these are the people I loved. They are no longer here, but they live inside me every day. Grief is heavy, but it teaches us something precious. It teaches us that time is fragile and kindness is urgent." The hall was silent. Not one whisper, not one sound. Keanu continued, "Hollywood celebrates success, but tonight I ask you to celebrate love. Because when everything else fades, when fame, money, and pride are gone, love and kindness remain. They are the only legacy worth leaving." Tears filled the eyes of the audience. Even the hardest faces softened. Some held hands, others bowed their heads. The very wound that was meant to break him became the source of his greatest strength. Then something unexpected happened. The workers of the event, the staff, the assistants, the people who were usually invisible in such grand halls, began to clap first. Their applause was not polite. It was raw, full of respect. Slowly, the entire hall joined, rising to their feet. The sound shook the walls. The director stood frozen, unable to move. His final weapon had turned into his final defeat. Humility had not only survived every storm, it had transformed pain into light. Keanu stepped down from the stage quietly, without pride, without seeking glory. When reporters tried to rush him with questions, he only said, "Remember this, humility is not about being less than others. It is about lifting others with you." That night, Hollywood changed. People who once lived for attention began to reflect on their own choices. Actors who had walked past workers without a glance now paused to greet them. Producers who measured success in gold began to see value in kindness. Keanu had not preached with anger. He had not fought with pride. He had simply lived with humility, and that humility had touched hearts stronger than any speech, stronger than any headline. The director disappeared into silence, his pride defeated. But the world remembered Keanu's words. They traveled beyond Hollywood, beyond borders, into homes and hearts around the globe. And so, the story of Keanu Reeves was no longer about movies or fame. It was about the strength of humility, the power of kindness, and the truth that even in the harshest storms, the quiet heart can shine the brightest.